the point that I think that I have, the point that I'm making, the point that I've realized about politics today is that what they'll do, what these political leaders will do, is they will prey on the identity or the emotions of the people, and they'll clump them together in a group, and they'll say, we need to stand up together, but the individual basis is not there to be able to make those decisions, correct? To be able to appeal to on an individual basis or even on a group basis. And what they'll do is they will play on, and I keep saying this, but this is what it is. They're playing on the emotions, because think about it like this. You go out to a rally, you take a microphone, which is something that we're probably going to do, and you start interviewing some of these people. They're not arguing for whatever their opinion on the topic is because it's morally right, evidently right, or factually right. Mm-hmm. They're arguing about this topic because they have to believe in this topic to continue to keep their own personal identity. Because I'm a Democrat, I'm a feminist, I'm a pro-gun person, I'm this, I'm that. And if this person is telling me that the evidence is stacked against my opinion, that threatens my personal identity, because my identity has been, because you, the individual, have created your identity based off of a political narrative. That is not only extremely unhealthy, but you are giving the control to people who, people in politics are unjust a majority of the time, or even half of the time, or even less than half of the time. At least there is a shred of people who are not good in the sense of how they go about accomplishing some of the tasks. Yeah. It's very underhand. We all have heard of things like the Illuminati and things of that nature. If you know that things are that crazy on that level, why in God's name would you purposefully identify with something like that and have that maintained as your identity without critically thinking things through and not using factual evidence to prove points? That's my point. Now we can jump into identity politics.
2 tips, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Don't watch news, read it.
There you go.
And if you want a good middle ground news story, there's no one site for that. Here's what you do. You find the story, you go to CNN.com, you read it there. Then you go to Fox News. You go to that, you find the story, you read it there. Whatever sort of story fits in the middle of those 2 stories, that's probably what actually happened.
Yep.
Well said.
Because they could
Very well said.
I could take this tablecloth and I could say that it's black, but I could also say it's not white, and both of those statements are true. But the reality is, I don't even know. The only reason that it's black, that we all perceive it as black, is because we're all not colorblind, and we're all seeing it visually in our brain as black. It could be red, and maybe our brains just all read it incorrectly. But the middle truth is there, as you pointed out. Yeah. I think this would be great to wrap up with some identity politics.
Identity politics. Ooh, one of my favorite things.
It has become such an estranged and ridiculous topic that has just been continuously perpetuated I feel on both sides, but I do feel that there are some examples where one side is a little more extreme than the other.
I think the left is more supportive of identity politics.
I agree with that.
At least officially.
Yeah.
I'm not particularly happy. It's been a while now, but I'm not particularly happy that Kamala Harris's response to somebody bringing up identity politics was, no, identity politics is a good thing.
Mm.
I don't see really how.
Right.
But for me, because I don't know the exact definition of identity politics, but I would imagine that it's something along the lines of breaking people down into groups.
Yes.
That is based upon their political ideology or beliefs, and making that the center point of their identity for themselves, and then also from an outside source. So if you look at somebody, the most important part of their identity is where they line up with political values and thoughts. Mm. And for me, that's just really dangerous.
Yes.
Because it's really dangerous for the same reason, and it's slightly off topic, but it's a little bit related with the whole thing with intersectionality. Mm-hmm. I don't like any ideology that says, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at your characteristics, and then we're going to choose the biggest ones, let's say, and then we're going to make it so that we can apparently accurately and fairly judge your views and your quality as a human being based off of where you fit into these groups. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So if you're a heterosexual, white, cisgendered male who aligns to the right, that's all we need to know about you to determine your overall quality as a person, what you think about day-to-day things, everything you think about every political position, how extreme you are in any of your political positions, all of that.
That's really dangerous because you're like, okay, camaraderie is a good thing, and it's good to have that, but when you have it within the realms of politics, I feel like that's very dangerous because, as you said, you're putting people in these groups when, as a collective, like, we're all trying to solve these problems, we're all trying to, make the world a better place to live in.
As individuals.
And and as you said before, it sets people against each other, as in it's either this way or no way, on both sides of the spectrum.
Yes, absolutely. And it's extremely unhealthy. And not only that, but you brought up a great point where I can give the example of African American conservatives. They get completely their opinions just get thrown completely under the bus because the assumption is if you're an African American, you're a Democrat or a liberal or you're left leaning. And if you're right wing, then then your opinion just doesn't matter as much because you don't fit the political narrative of the identity politics. That's really screwed up. I mean, not only is that morally wrong, but that's racist. Let's be very clear. That's racist to say you're African American, you have to be a Democrat because you're African American. Oh, it's even gotten so extreme where you're a Caucasian person, you're a white person, you're probably a racist.
This is the way it's going though with the news stories and news media.
Yes,
it's really concerning because on the one hand you see stories like that where they say it's so annoying because some of the news outlets that seem to have a left-leaning bias will say things like, "I'm not saying this thing, but wouldn't that be nuts?" And it's like you don't get. We know what you're doing. Yeah. You're putting it out there. You're trying to put it in people's heads. You don't just get to do that. Yeah. But one of the things they'll do is they'll say things like, "Oh well, unfortunately, the way with demographics playing out, it looks like the Republican Party is becoming the party of white people." And it's like, stop that. Don't talk like that. That is racist. That is wrong. You are making everything worse when you talk like that.
And you're misleading the public.
You are not looking at the demographics of a group and accurately relaying and say, I looked into this group. I found out, demographically speaking, they were about 60% white. They were about 10% Hispanic. And the remainder was split between black, Asian, and Jewish. Sure. Just trying to use a whole bunch.
Sure.
But that would be looking at the demographics and just saying, this is what I found. But they don't do that.
No.
They say, there's a lot of white guys in the Republican Party.
And that's a problem.
And a lot of the time when when you see the standard image of the Republican Party, you see a lot of white guys. So that must mean that there's a racial component to wanting to be a Republican, and that it's specifically reserved for this one racial group, which is racist, scary. You're pardon the pun, but you're whitewashing stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you could do that same thing for another racial group, and they do, then it should be viewed as if you do it to another racial group and that's racist, then it's racist that whatever
across
racial
the
group
board, across the board. Exactly, it works both ways. It absolutely works both ways because you can, and that's something that I feel as though the news media and politics, and again I'm calling them out. I'm specifically calling them out because it's ridiculous. They take these points and they speak with such passion about things, but they make the assumption, or at least they allude the assumption to the viewers at home that our opinion is the morally right one. Our opinion is the one that's politically correct.
And it goes back to the identity thing. Learn to think for yourself.
Yeah.
You don't need to pick a side to formulate your own opinion, or be on the right or the left to be correct,
Exactly. All it comes down to is, how are we helping people? How are we loving people? How are we doing the best for society? How are we doing what's right for society? And it takes a lot of hard work to be not only to be able to compromise with the other side of the table, but to be able to introspectively have the self-awareness and the confidence and the intellectual aptitude to say, maybe this opinion could be better. Instead, it's, no, I've structured my entire life around this because they told me to. And if anything doesn't align with that, I must immediately attack it because they're attacking me. They're not attacking the opinion. Yep. They're attacking me. And I can't handle that because I'm so fragile and everything hurts inside.
I'm me.
Yeah, and I'm me. But no, you've been spun and you've been lied to a narrative that's just been pushed, maybe because your family did, your family felt that way their entire lives, or maybe because you watch too much news media. But the point is, kids, be an individual.
Don't be sheep. Don't
be a sheep. Garner your own opinions, and don't listen to what the Magic TV box says. Don't listen to what the politicians say. Do your own evidence, gain your own evidence, and do your own research on these things. Read books. Become your own type of person. Don't just listen to what anybody has to tell you just because they make it sound like it's true. You have to put in the effort and do the research. You're never going to be a good person deep down if you're not willing to introspectively look at things about yourself and have the self-awareness to realize what's wrong. And I think that's the final point.
Very good.
So why should they listen to you?
Why should they listen to me? That's actually a great point. Why should they listen to me? Because I'm not telling you what to think. I'm telling you, think for yourself. That's the difference. I'm not telling you to believe anything that I have to say that's my opinion. I'm telling you, the person at home, do your own damn research. Figure out these things for yourself. Because life is difficult. And if you go about life just listening to other people and
labeling yourself
and believing anything that they have to say, you're going to be miserable because you're going to run into things that kind of go against that mentality that you've set forth for yourself, especially if it's just been fed to you your whole life. You have to put in the extra effort and become an individual. Don't just be a sheep, like Rich said.
So let this be a message. Why should you watch us? Why should you listen to us? Don't. Unless you want to.
That's right. That's right. Unless you want to. Unless you really want to learn the ways in which you can love others and better yourself. We're not going to feed you a narrative. We're just going to give you the straight truth. And that's what Psycosmos is all about. Joe Biden, sponsor us. I don't know how to end this.
Hi there. If you, like many fine pandas, and Jeff, enjoyed this content, please be sure to like, subscribe, ring that bell, and support us on Patreon, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. Thank you.